if you were to grade him A through F, what level do you think he's played at so far in totality of his entire career? What I I'm gonna make an argument. I'll start because I feel like maybe I'm not setting up the question well. I think I would give him either a B minus or a C, and I think that takes into consideration his hot start. Was undefeated for most of his career, but then also takes into consideration his maybe lack of explosive skill set. But he is still, he's shown a lot of athleticism. Actually, it's kind of interesting, right? Because how the outcome of a game ends up forming the narrative of the quarterback. And to be fair, all 5 of Brock Purdy's interceptions have came in the second half of games in like when the 49ers are only down by 1 touchdown. So in really terrible times has he turned the ball over. Like he's made the mistakes at the worst times. It's not just making mistakes, but it's also where he's made them. In the red zone on the 5-yard line, is so much worse than an interception on the other side of the field. So his bats have been really bad, but his highs have been really high. So I would give him probably a B minus. And I think he can turn it around. Why do you think all of a sudden his turnover luck has been so negative? Because he's always had a high level of turnover worthy plays, but right now the luck is not swinging his way. How do you feel about Brock Purdy after this game overall as a quarterback? Yeah.
I think you and me are actually pretty spot on in terms of where you and I evaluate him. Mine's a C plus. When you asked the question, I was thinking C plus, and then you said B minus to a C. So right in that range. Reason being, last year I thought he was probably in the 20, right around number 20 in terms of the quarterback rankings and things like that. This year I think he's improved. I think he's above average. So in that, just like in that, in the 10 to 16 range is probably where I'd put him, somewhere around there. And I think he's maybe in the middle of that. And that's where, when I said earlier this year, you're starting to get into the upper echelon of quarterbacks, because there's probably like 13 guys that you say are franchise guys in the NFL. Top 10, I think you can make an argument, but also I think that there are other factors that a lot of fans don't necessarily see until they come on the screen. That is turnovers. He's had turnovers, and they've come in inopportune times. And I think the question that you could have asked the last few weeks is, with players injured, with your team in tougher situations, this is where Brock Purdy has really been, he's really been tested. Can you carry the team on your back when they need you to? And unfortunately, 3 weeks straight, the answer hasn't been yes. The first few weeks, it's been not necessarily close games. You've been comfortable. You've made so many explosive plays that the little mistakes have gone away. And I mean, it's not that they've gone away, but they don't really matter. Now, with games being closer, the little mistakes matter, and unfortunately, they're hitting. Now, the second part, you pointed out turnover-worthy play rate. It's been high throughout Brock Purdy's career. And last year was pretty high. I'd say, I forget exactly the number. This year it's at 5%. 5% is at top 5 in the NFL, and 5% is pretty darn high. The reason, though, that you're seeing a little bit more of a negative approach towards Brock Purdy and his turnovers this year is because he's regressing to the mean. When you see turnover-worthy play rate, that's what your expectation is. But then the turnovers actually are much lower because obviously defenses miss opportunities. But this year, it's regressing more to the mean in that the opportunities are that you expect them to get, more of them are coming for the defense in terms of generating these turnovers. And so this is what yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, people were saying that last year, like you can't be this lucky forever. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Correct.
like he wasn't making mistakes. It was like that those mistakes weren't being capitalized on. And I think that's what's been, this is side note ish, but I think you'll agree with me. That's been what's been kind of surprising to me with the kind of like, oh, all of a sudden he's bad now, or we should go to Sam Darnold or whatever. Is this doesn't surprise me from Brock Purdy. I kind of, if someone would have came up to me and said, without a run game, with the defense performing poorly, can Brock Purdy carry the team? I would have said no coming into this game. And that doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback. I still think he's a really good quarterback. I think even last game, aside from his like worst mistakes, which once again were at the worst time and definitely would bring down his grade if you were like grading him for the game, you would give him a poor grade because you give more stake to the most important moments. But he did perform well in that first half of the game, and he did performed well in Minnesota as well. But
Yeah.
I got a little lost there. Oh, I was just saying, without, in my opinion, when you reflect on Brock Purdy's skill set, it never surprised me that he needed a coach that was calling a good scheme. I think people have said that since the beginning, that he really benefits from Kyle Shanahan's system and from the players around him. And yeah, so I don't know, this him not being able to carry a team that has a poor offensive line, has no rushing ability, and defense is giving up big plays. It didn't surprise me that he looked poorly this game. Did he?
No, I
That
think so. And I mean, again, the other part is like when Brock Purdy, when the piling on Brock Purdy starts, I think it's also important to note that not everything was his fault. The 49ers in this game, you talk about Brock, I thought he played a good first half. I thought he kept the 49ers in this in the game in the first half, and I thought he had a good job there. Second half, you drive down the field and then you commit the turnover, the interception in the red zone, where it was not only an inexcusable play because he doesn't hand the ball off for what could have been a touchdown, he also, even if that's not an interception, he takes a penalty there and then drives them even back because on a play like that where it's RPO, you either have to throw the ball immediately or you have to hand it off. He didn't do either, and he committed the interception. So it's plays like that where, it's not like everything Brock Purdy's doing is bad. No, there's a reason I cite him as an above average quarterback. But when you talk about carrying your team, things like that, those mistakes cannot happen in situations like that. And so for a good portion of this game, Brock Purdy played well. It's just the turnovers were killer for the 49ers and ultimately led to a 10-point swing. That one cost the 49ers 7 points. And then the second interception led to a field goal the other way. That cost the 49ers, 3 more points. Or so, or that cost the 49ers 7 more points because they scored a touchdown on the very ensuing play to Jamar Chase. So you can talk about a 10 to 14 point swing right there. That ultimately comes as a result of his decisions. And unfortunately, that's the way that it is. So, there are different things that you can point to. Brock Purdy certainly has a good foundation. You just got to start limiting these turnover worthy plays. And that's why discussion about him is occurring.
I